Alright, so we have the main event for the 263 pay-per-view. It's Marvin Vettori versus Israel Adesanya. So Israel has a 4-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage. Quite sizable, you know, different frames obviously. But yeah, let's see who can use their frame the best. So, in the striking, Israel Adesanya, he's a world-class striker, no doubt about it. You know, he's equally proficient in either stance. He's constantly feigning, not for the sake of feigning, but he's looking to make reads with his feints, see how they're going to react, and then look for strikes of his own. And he's very fluid with his combinations and his strikes. You know, if you give him an inch, he's gonna take it a mile. And Vettori's gonna want to fight in close. Israel is quite comfortable in the pocket. You know, he has good vision. He does rely on head movement and upper body movement to avoid strikes in the pocket. But it has worked for him so far, so I can't really knock it. You know, it is quite a high risk type of striking defense, but he seems to have very good vision and see the punches coming, and he seems to get out of the way for the most part. And he does have nice counter hooks in the pocket. Like probably your best example would be the Robert Whittaker fight when he caught Whittaker with a right hook, I believe, and put him out soon after that. But yeah, caught him twice with a right hook, I believe. And Marvin Vettori, his stand-up's a little bit easier to break down. I mean, the majority of it is the straight left, naked or otherwise, and he looks to be on the front foot, where he usually is, but if you start feinting against him, he will kind of freeze and kind of stay stagnant a little bit, maybe even take the back foot. And that's what Izzy made him do in the first fight, is he started feinting quite a fair bit. Arms were flaring out of Vettori every time Izzy feinted. You know, he does bite on feints quite egregiously. And Izzy was backing him up with the feints. And also Jack Manson was, in like the 3rd or 4th round, he started a feint and he started trying to take the front foot, and, you know, Marvin let off the gas a little bit. And if you get Marvin on the back foot, he starts to lean back to avoid strikes. And with a sniper like Izzy, you can get in trouble doing that. And also, if you get him on the back foot and then you try and pressure him, he will reach for the clinch, and he will, you know, outstretch those hands, try and reach, grab the opponent pretty much and get into the clinch just to try and relieve the pressure. So, you know, he does do a few things on the back foot which can definitely get him in trouble. And he does have a tell that lets you know when he does want to throw straight left, because he doesn't set it up with the jab or the right hook or anything. He kind of just takes these short steps into range and then he'll throw the straight left. And that's against orthodox opponents. With southpaw opponents, you know, he gets the range much better on his straight left. But with orthodox opponents, I think he has trouble finding the range, and, you know, he has to kind of compensate with taking these short steps to try and get into range, but also just alerts the opponent and allows them to get out of the way or look to counter. And at distance, you know, this fight isn't really close. Like, Izzy has a very educated kicking game, a lot of kickboxing experience, much better at range, much better at controlling the range. And against wrestlers, Izzy will kind of just tend to go for singular strikes, singular kicks, singular techniques, you know. Most likely he's going to look for in this fight. He'll switch to southpaw, maybe go for the low calf kick, but also the inside low calf kick against Vettori when he's in orthodox. But also, since Vettori's in southpaw, he's probably going to go for the high kick and the body kick quite often. And, you know, Marvin Vettori doesn't check leg kicks, so I think Izzy's going to hurt the lead leg, because that's generally what he likes to target early and often in his fights. But in the grappling is where it really gets interesting, because Marvin, you know, he is a competent grappler. He has a nice driving single, goes for the left overhook to just complete it, and basically turns it into a driving double onto the fence. And if you try and scramble out, he does have decent scrambles, and in a scramble he generally looks to attack the single leg and repeat the process. But Izzy does have good takedown defense on the cage fence. Like, you got to chain wrestle him if you want to take him down on the cage. And he does have a good sprawl at distance, Adesanya. But yeah, he has better takedown defense than people are giving him credit for. But if you get him down, he definitely seems like he's a fish out of water when you get him on his back. Seems like he doesn't know what to do, really. And for Vettori, you know, he's very comfortable in half guard. He'll look to control from there, land short ground and pound, but, you know, he's pretty happy to stay in half guard, and he'd be happy just getting that position on Izzy and just sitting there, honestly. How these guys win fights? So for Marvin Vettori, he's got great cardio, great volume. He's a well-rounded mixed martial artist, and also he's very durable as well. He's never been finished in his career. And how many fights he had? Like 22 fights. So yeah, quite durable. But I reckon when he's best is when he's being the aggressor. When he's not, when he's passive and when he's waiting, that's when he starts losing these fights. He starts letting fights slip away. For Israel Adesanya, he's a very good striker. He's got very high striking IQ. Also, fight IQ in general, comes in with good game plans and generally does stick to them. Also has good strike and defense, good chin, good recoverability. Like, he was getting hit with bombs from Yan, and, he took them well, in my opinion. And he has good takedown defense against the fence, which, yeah, I think is going to play a big part in this one, because that's generally where most of Vettori's takedowns occur. How these guys lose fights, so for Israel Adesanya, it's the grappling tendencies, mostly when he gets put on his back. We talked about that before. For Vettori, it's when he's being passive and when he's waiting on his opponent. And, we saw that in parts of the Hermansson fight. I think it was round 4, something around there. Hermansson got a bit of momentum back just because he started feinting and started pressing the action on Vettori, and Vettori kind of froze up a little bit. But the main example would be in the Adesanya fight, the first Adesanya fight, where Adesanya just froze him up with feints. Past the victory for these two, so for Vettori, look to mix it up with the low calf kick, the inside low calf kick or the outside, depends what stance he's in. Because you can't just be throwing straight left against this guy. You don't want to get that predictable, because he will, punish you if you do get too predictable, if you just throw in the straight left. Look to check his leg kicks early, that's what Yan did, and really slowed down the offense of Adesanya. Also, look to just be on the front foot with calculated forward pressure. Don't be going crazy like Derek Brunson did, but yeah, just forward pressure. Be smart with it. Stay in a range that benefits you and not Israel Adesanya. And for Adesanya on the feet, look for constant feints to get him backing up. And then look for the inside low kicks in orthodox stance, and then the outside low kick when you do switch to southpaw. Also look to finish a combination with a straight 2 down the pipe. I don't think he sees it coming, honestly. Like, when Izzy was looking for it, pretty much every straight 2 down the pipe, even hit a straight elbow with him to finish a combination at one point, and, he just doesn't see it coming. Like, even Kevin Holland was tagging him with the 2 when he was finishing his combinations with it after a kick or whatnot. Like, he just eats them, man. Like, he doesn't see it coming behind the punch. But yeah, also at the start of the fight, look for singular strikes. Look to see how he's going to shoot, because he is going to. So look to see what kind of takedowns he's going for. Singular strikes, try and really bait the takedown entry out of him, but don't get too over aggressive. Start throwing 3-4 punch combinations and allow him to level change. But mainly for Vettori, look to get your wrestling shoes on. Look for the double leg as he's leaning back, because if you throw a straight left or even a jab, maybe he'll lean back to avoid it. So just get the read on what punches he's leaning back on, and then look to shoot a double leg while he's leaning back and his posture's kind of compromised a little bit. Also, his hips are a little bit pronounced as well. So yeah, that's a good time to shoot. That's when Blachowicz had his success with the takedowns, is when he got Adesanya to lean back and then he shot a blast double of his own. And also when he's switching stance at distance, look to time that with a blast double. Look to take him down there as he squared his stance up, and you can hopefully, time that well and then just get a good entry in your double leg there. And when you do get him down, look for top control, sit in half guard, and look for some short ground and pound shots. Don't get too crazy or over aggressive, start posturing up and go for crazy ground and pound. Just, stay tight like Yan did, and just focus on top control, really. And for Izzy, if you do get taken down, like, this is, obviously you want to stuff the takedowns and nullify the takedown entries of Vettori by keeping distance, but if you do get taken down and you're down on the scorecards, you're going to have to give your back. And Vettori isn't a huge back taker, so, I think it is fine enough to give your back if you are down the scorecards, or you'd need to really, get going. But generally, you should avoid being on your backside, obviously. Don't really need to say that, but yeah. How I see the fight going, so I do believe this fight goes basically the same as the first fight. I think Izzy's going to be feinting the crap out of Vettori at distance, and Vettori's kind of he's not going to know what to do at range. The only difference is that I'm expecting Izzy to finish him here. I mean, he's downloaded Marvin's data, his striking data, and I believe he's going to be looking good from the get-go on this one. Whereas usually Adesanya likes to make reads early, take the first few rounds off just to make reads. But in this one, he's already got the reads, so I expect him to be on from the get-go. I do think Vettori needs to go with the meathead approach and just bum rush Adesanya though. Like, he can't stay at distance with this guy. He's got to get in the pocket. He's got to go for takedowns. But Izzy generally tends to look better when he faces guys that are super aggro, like, the old Derek Brunson, the Whitaker that fought in the Adesanya fight, and also just Paulo Costa. I feel like this fight basically comes down to whether Vettori can get Adesanya down. Like, Adesanya's shown good takedown defense on the cage, and that's where the majority of Vettori's successful takedowns tend to happen. The difference between Jan Blachowicz and Vettori is that Jan got the respect of Izzy on the feet first. He stood his ground, he was checking leg kicks, and he made Izzy feel his power early. Whereas Izzy didn't really feel any threat on the feet with Vettori. This is what assisted Jan in getting takedowns later on in the fight. Marvin isn't going to have the same success using his striking to set up his takedowns, because Izzy doesn't respect the stand-up of Marvin, and also because, it's his stand-up's quite basic in all honesty. But yeah, all of Jan's takedowns were very well-timed takedowns, either over a kick of Adesanya or under a punch of Adesanya, and he had very good timing on those. And Marvin doesn't have the same finesse on his takedowns. He's more of a drive you to the fence and try and work from there type of wrestler. However, I can't trust Izzy at this price against a durable, competent grappler who will be constantly looking to exploit his weaknesses off his back. Like, I think Adesanya is the type of guy to kind of delude himself about his grappling level. Like, before UFC 259, he said, as a prediction, he said he was going to submit Jan. Like, that's got to be one of the worst takes in retrospect of all time. Like, that aged like milk. He didn't look like he knew how to submit a person when Jan was on top of him. Like, I think he's the type of guy to delude his grappling level a little bit. And he probably gasses him, like, everyone at the gym probably gasses him up. Like, they're all smaller guys at the gym. There isn't too many guys, especially grapplers of his size at City Kickboxing. So, I do believe that he is kind of overrating his BJJ game a little bit, and hopefully that humbled him a little bit, the Jan fight. So with all that being said, I don't hate anybody taking a stab at Vettori, since he technically has a path to victory if he can get Adesanya down. But I do think Izzy's going to be able to stay upright and probably just style on him at distance and just in the stand-up at any range for the most part. So yeah, that's the prediction. We'll get on to looking at the betting lines. Alright, so yeah, I think Israel Adesanya does win. I think he gets the finish in this one. I think it's going to be a TKO in either round 3 or 4. So if I had to pick a round, I'd say 4. Bets I was looking at, I think the line is correct. I think maybe if Vettori got up to like $4, then I'd probably play him, but I don't see him getting to that price. I think the line is going to stay basically the same until fight night. And I think it's correct. I think they've nailed it on the head. I think that's where the line should be, and I don't really want to bet anybody at that price. No props interest me either. Yeah,